All right. Welcome to the fifth episode of the Heart to Heart podcast. My name is Hafiz, and today we are going to continue the summary of the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0. So, yeah, let's jump right into it.
Hey yo, you ready?
Please don't make this complicated. What about the time we wasted on our love? I can't keep the things we traded.
All right, number four. Um, Physically feel your emotions. So, pay attention to how an emotion physically affects you, right? Increased heart rate, dry mouth, tightening in stomach, neck, back, fast, shallow breathing. Um, So for practice, close your eyes and remember a high emotion incident. Notice what physical symptoms you get simply thinking about it. Your body plays a significant role in how you feel, right? Your body itself plays a much bigger role. Your physical body plays a much bigger role than you think in terms of um, your emotions and how you feel inside. Um, so what it says here, right, is close your eyes and remember a high emotion incident. Why don't you do it now? Just pause this, close your eyes, and think of a high emotion incident. And I want you to pay close attention to how you feel, right? So the things that it said here: increased heart rate, dry mouth, tightening in the stomach, neck, back. I also want you to keep an eye out for maybe your hands shaking, or extreme sweating, or something along the lines of that. There, pay close attention to these physical symptoms and keep them in mind because they play a huge role in how you feel emotionally. It's basically okay. So the reason it's important is because these symptoms that you feel physically, any other scenario that's not related to emotions that causes you to feel these situations are gonna trigger you feeling it emotionally. It's gonna remind you of basically these situations. It's gonna remind you of these situations where you are, feeling down, feeling disappointed, feeling sad, just feeling negative emotions, right? And something completely unrelated to it will trigger it. So just keep an eye out for that. Number five, know what or who pushes your hot buttons. Okay. So pay attention to the situations or people that trigger your emotions. Think about why you might find these situation or people irksome. All right. This one's so important. You need to know what causes you to feel down. Take the time to just think about what causes you to feel down. Okay, this is so important because what you need to do, especially when starting off, is intentionally avoid situations like that up until you build yourself up a little bit. And once you're in a situation where you build yourself up, what you need to do is slowly but surely introduce yourself back to these. And if you do it gradually, what you're gonna find is you're gonna find that you build resistance to it, right? You're gonna When I say gradually, put yourself in a situation where you could take a step in, but you also have a foot out just in case something goes wrong, right? And you just keep taking steps like that, and eventually you're gonna get to a situation where these things that push your buttons don't really push your buttons anymore. They don't have much of an effect on you anymore. And I think that's extremely important to identify them, to make sure that they don't take over you, because especially if someone knows it, and someone really likes to trigger it, right? And they don't really have control over when they trigger it, that could really honestly, it could somewhat dictate your life to a certain degree. It could dictate a lot of your life, which is why it's important to know what things triggered and to um, temporarily avoid it up until you're in a situation where you're ready to gradually introduce it. Number six, watch yourself like a hawk. Imagine observing your situation from above, like a hawk. Think about how your emotion Think about how your emotional reaction may make things worse. Try to see things from the other person's perspective. Formulate a calmer way to express your emotions and effectively convey your points. Okay, so The watch yourself like a hawk part is very similar to like a statement that I really, really do like to live by, and it's um rise above the situation and analyze it. So basically, what you need to do here is to not look at things from your perspective, but look at things objectively. And how you do that is be like, okay, so there's two different ways you could approach this. Scenario A is you could assume that what you're going through, or tell yourself, okay, what I'm going through right now is something that one of my close friends is going through. What advice would I give them? Right? So let's say my closest friend is going through something really hard. They're going through a breakup. Okay. What advice would I give them if they were going through a breakup? Right? That's number one. Number two is to assume you are someone else. And you let's assume you're that person and that you're in a situation where you're giving yourself advice. Right? Another person giving yourself an advice. So what would you do in a scenario like that? Right? You're gonna ask yourself this question. And so that's basically the idea of watch yourself like a hawk. It's you want to be able to look at things objectively instead of subjectively. You want to be able to just analyze the situation for what it is, not for how you feel. One that's going to allow you to do is obtain a different perspective. It's going to allow you to obtain, a different viewpoint. It's going to allow you to really make a much more informed decision rather than a decision that you make if you were to look at things from one perspective. It's extremely important that you do look at the different sides of things when you're observing a situation. Number seven, keep an emotional journal. So by keeping a journal of your emotions and what events trigger them, you can become more aware of patterns. I really like this one. I saw a video of someone who, for an entire month, at the end of the day, they wrote down how they were feeling. So they wrote down what happened that caused them to feel like that, and they wrote down how they were feeling, and they color coded it too. Like it was really, really good. And so what happened with her specifically was, she took that information and analyzed it with her significant other, and they identified what it was um that caused negative that caused them to feel not so good that day. And after taking that feedback into account, they both knew what they had to do from then on to make it work. And it was because of keeping that journal that allowed them to really understand what caused what. And I highly encourage anyone and everyone to do this. Keep track of what causes you to get triggered, and keep track of the days when you got triggered, what caused it. If there's any additional information into it, keep track of that as well. Keep track of all of this and then analyze it at the end. And that will allow you to make a decision. And it will give you a better understanding of why, or rather, what causes you to feel a certain way in a certain situation. I think this could relate to number five, which is know who and what pushes your hot buttons. This is a great way of um, that entire thing. Number eight, don't be fooled by a bad mood. When you're stuck in a down mood, it is not a good time to make important decisions. Briefly reflect on recent events that may have brought on the mood. I can't stress this enough. Don't make a decision when you're in a bad mood. Not an important one, sorry. Don't make an important decision when you're in a bad mood, because making, honestly, don't make an important decision when you're on either end of the spectrum. Because if you make a decision when you're in a bad mood, what's going to happen is you're going to decide on what's best for you in that specific scenario, not in the norm. And you do not want to be making decisions based off of what's best for you in that bad mood, because what it's going to do is that product, or that thing that decision that you made is going to be useful for you only if you're in a bad mood. But we don't want to be in a bad mood, not as a constant state, right? And because of that, it's important that important decisions are not made during then. You need to, and this is also very important in terms of recognizing when an important decision is being made. You got to understand that no, like, important decisions need to be held back for after you're outside of that bad mood, when you're in a neutral state, when you really get to think through everything. That's when you want to make important decisions. Um, and you also want to take this opportunity to identify what brought you those that bad mood, really. That's what you want to identify. Number 9, don't be fooled by a good mood. I really like this one. So a good mood can deceive your thinking as much as a bad one. Um, the excitement and energy leave you more likely to make impulsive decisions that ignore potential consequences of your action. Exactly. This is the exact opposite of the situation that we just talked about, the bad mood, right? So if you're in a bad mood, you're likely to make a decision based off of you're likely to make a decision that's good if you're constantly in a bad mood, but that's not a neutral state that we want. If you're in a good mood, you're likely to make a decision that's constantly good if you're in a good mood constantly, but you're not constantly in a good mood. That's it's just never this is life. You're never constantly in a good mood. And I don't think you should constantly strive to be in a good mood, to be honest. Um, it's sorry, let me restate that. You should strive to be in a good mood, but you shouldn't expect to constantly be in a good mood because it's not realistic to continually expect yourself to always be in a good mood. And yeah, keep an eye out. Yeah, impulsive decisions are usually made when you're in either end of the spectrum, either in a really good mood or in a really bad mood. So just make sure you're in a neutral state when you're making decisions. And yeah, make sure you're in a neutral state when you're doing that. Number 10, ask yourself why you do what you do. What is your earliest memory of reacting like this? Are the people or circumstances similar in some way? Every single action, every single thought, every single statement has a reasoning behind it, right? Even when someone says no reason, which happens quite a bit, there's always a reason behind it. There's always a motive, a feeling, um, a goal. There's always something, whether they consciously are aware of it or not, that drives them to say that. This is just how life works. There's always reasoning behind things. And so ask yourself when you do whatever it is that you're doing, ask yourself why are you doing it? All right, like when you did it initially, was it because people told you to do it? Is it morally right to do it, or did you just want to do it? It's not always. See, I've been in situations, or I've talked to certain people, and I've ended up in situations in a conversation with them where they start questioning everything they do, right? Even things that are morally right, and they're like, "I'm not gonna do it because so and so told me." Usually, it's parents, right? It's like, "I'm not gonna do it because now my parents told me to do it, and I don't want to do it because they told me to do it." That's a absolutely atrocious way of approaching things. What you need to do is identify if it benefits you or not. And your reasoning for doing it should be if it benefits you or not. That's it. That should be your reasoning, right? Um, but it's also important to identify where it came from, if it's genuinely something you do want to do, or if it's something you don't. And yeah, so just try and identify reasonings behind it. And another thing that identifying a reasoning behind something does is it gives you the motivation to continue, right? So when you're in a situation where you do not have the motivation at all, it gives you the motivation to continue. It's gonna be your reason for going through the tough days. You're gonna be like, okay, this is why I do it. And now I'm going to, continue forward with it or whatnot. Okay, number 11, visit your values. Remind yourself of your values and how well you're currently living up to them. Okay. Okay, everyone should have. I hope everyone has, and if they don't, they really should have core value, core values and beliefs. Okay, these are things you live by. These are things you say you will never ever do, because it's wrong to do or because it's not who I am, etc., etc. These core values and beliefs don't get crossed or broken ever. Like that's it. They're just their core values. You stand by it regardless of the situation. If you do not have core values and beliefs, you need to find them. You need to think about them. You need to make sure to write them down. And easy way of identifying them is write down things you believe in. Identify which one of those, um, things you believe in the sense that things that you think you should live by, right? And then identify which one of those there's no way. of you. There's no way you see yourself doing anything apart from it. Usually, there's a reasoning behind it, whether because it's morally incorrect or it's just negatively affect you. Whatever the reasoning is, there's a reasoning behind it. So make sure every now and then you're going back to this. Honestly, write them down. Write down your core beliefs. Have it in your notes pad. Have it in Google Docs, wherever it is that you want to put it. Write it down and occasionally come back to it. You really should be in a situation where you're visiting these to make sure that you're on track. Figure out if there's anything you've done or said that violates these beliefs and be like, okay, I messed up there. Um, I'm not gonna do that again, or I'm gonna stay away from doing it again. And these are really really important. I can't stress this enough. Your core beliefs define who you are. All right, your core values, your core beliefs, they define who you are. Make sure you're constantly following them. I cannot stress this enough. Make sure you're constantly following them. Um, no one respects anyone who doesn't respect their own core values and beliefs. All right, number 12. Check yourself. Notice your mood and how it affects your demeanor. Right? What look do you project to people? Ask yourself honestly. Um, how do people view you? How do you think people view you? I think this is a great time. This is a great way of identifying a couple things, right? You wanna wait, there's almost always a disconnect between how you view yourself and how sorry, between how you think people view you and how people actually view you, right? There's almost always a disconnect, whether for the better or for the worse, almost always. So what you should do is pay attention, right? Ask yourself, how do people view me? And then I want you to ask other people, right? How they view you and see how off that is, all right? They might tell them to be honest, because like a lot of times your friends and whatnot, they're gonna bullshit it a little bit. They're not gonna tell you straight up. So ask them to be honest. Tell them this is for self. So I'm trying to improve and whatnot. So just be honest with the situation and whatnot. And if it's something negative, please do not take it negatively. Just it's constructive. Don't take it don't take it to heart. It's constructive. You want to use that as a learning tool, learning lesson. But basically, once you get that information, you want to ask yourself, does that align with my core value? Is that is that the type of person I want to be seen as? And if not, you're gonna need to make changes in your life that lead you to becoming that person that you want to be viewed as, right? And you gotta ask yourself, what look do you project to people? Right? This is really, really important to identify the look that you project to people. How people see you is gonna determine your connection that you have with others, right? So the connection you have with yourself is irrespective of other people. It's got nothing to do with other people, right? Their opinions doesn't matter to do with that. But in terms of how other people see you, right? Their projection of you, like as a whole, everyone's gonna have you're gonna have certain people who will see you briefly, and um their first impression of you is gonna be drastically different from someone else, right? That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to generally how do people see you. So your projection, right? How you project to people is going to determine how people generally interact with you. And that is really, really, really important. So identify it, make sure it aligns with your core value. And if you align with your core value, you're going to align with other people who align with your core value as well. And things are gonna start getting better once you really understand that. All right, spot your emotions in books, movies, and music. So finding your emotions in the expression of artists allows you to learn about yourself and discover feelings that are often hard to communicate. Yes, artists are usually able to communicate a lot better, right? So they spend a lot of time working on their art. They spend a lot of time, um, you know, making crafting something that's very appealing per se, right? It's something where they're able to communicate how they feel, right? And that honestly makes it easier for them to write things and whatnot. But it also does resonate with most people who are in a similar boat. it resonates with actually everyone who's in a similar boat, right? So, if you find it hard to identify um, your emotions in other places and whatnot, it's definitely a good idea to try and identify it in books, movies, music, any form of art. To be honest, it really helps because w- that is going to be you. It's the closest thing to you seeing yourself in someone else. That's why it's really really helpful, and especially if it's a situation where you struggle with seeing other people. Sorry, with seeing yourself from a third person's point of view. This is a great way of getting that. So number 14, seek feedback. All right. So often there's a big difference between how you see yourself and how others see you. I alluded to that earlier. When you ask for feedback, seek specific examples and look for similarities in what people tell you. Yes, I like that one. So when you're getting feedback, what asking for specific examples does is it provides you with specific things that you do that cause them to view you in a specific way. And it causes you to view yourself in a specific way as well. Right. And so getting specific examples will allow you to figure out what it is and allow you to make changes accordingly to readjust how you perceive yourself and how other people perceive you. Right. So definitely seek feedback. It's huge. Um, get seek feedback from people you like and people you don't. People who like you and people who don't like you. Right? Just get it in general, get a wide variety of it. Um, try not to get it. I would suggest against getting it from people who despise you, because what happens in a scenario like that is, unless they're honest, right? If they're honest, it's a different story. But generally, if someone has nothing but hatred towards you, what they're gonna do is they're gonna point out things that they're gonna point out things from their perspective, right? And usually their perspective is one of hatred, and that doesn't align with the general population. It's just those specific people. So if you find someone who's usually critical of you, and they're critical of people in general, those are the people you want to ask. They're going to give you the best, most honest response. But do ask everyone else, and when you're asking again, make sure tell them it's not going to change anything about how you interact with them, and be like, yeah, I just need all I need right now is um, just feedback, so I could improve myself, and I'm gonna take it all constructively. All right, so 15, get to know yourself under stress. So people vary in how they react to stress. Which physical symptoms are common for you? An upset stomach, a pounding headache, um, canker sores? I have no idea what that is. And back spasms. So when you recognize that you're under stress, take some time to recharge your emotional battery. Yes. So when you're under stress, pay close attention to how you react, right? Consciously and subconsciously. Pay close attention to how you react. um, it's really important that you identify the physical changes in your body, because physically your physical body again plays a much more important role than you think in your emotional situation, right? With you emotionally, it it plays a much more important role in it. And so it's a very important that you do, recognize situations where you are under stress and actively think about what reactions you're getting from it. And once those are noted, right, then you could put yourself in a situation where um, you'll basically have a better understanding of what is going on. And always when you have a better understanding of what's going on, you have a bit of a better idea of how to react in those situations, how to avoid those situations, and the likes of that. All right, and that's going to be the end of self-awareness strategies. And next week we're going to be touching up on self-management strategies, and then we're going to touch up on social awareness strategies, and then relationship management strategies. And then we will quickly summarize the rest of the book. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to talk to y'all in the next episode. Take care.